Welcome back, everyone, to the Functional Code. We are excited to bring you guys in today a new episode on breath work. This is not just your typical episode talking about breathing. This is diving into absolutely everything regarding breath work and how many things it can change in your life. And I'm telling you, you guys are missing out if you do not practice this. So as always, I am Dr. Addy.
And I am Dr. Jace. Yeah, Dr. Addy just ran me through a protocol prior to of just the assessment of the breathing in different parts of the diaphragm, and it opened up my rotation quite a bit. So stay tuned for that. Be a lot of applications, tools, and we're gonna dive into some of the studies as well. So with this episode, everyone needs to breathe. Everyone can utilize all these resources, these tools that we're gonna bring up today. It just helps aid in moving your body, especially when every single movement is core to extremity on how we walk, how we throw, run, jump. It all starts with the core. Everyone should be able to use some of these small tools and use it for your guys' selves. Share it with some of their friends, family. It opens things up quite a bit.
100%. I'm telling you, there are some things in here that you guys have never heard about before regarding breath work. And I hadn't either when I started digging really deep into this. I knew about some of it, obviously. There were a lot of things that really excited me, not only myself, but other people that I know that could definitely utilize these techniques. So stay tuned.
I love that. Going into a couple small things. So with certain patients that we've used some of these techniques before with have opened up and they've even noticed themselves small little changes even in a small session. So whether it's professional athletes, whether it's people with certain conditions like COPD,
Yep.
this is something that when we go through some of this stuff, you'll start noticing you're able to handle stress easier. You're able to have a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to build it up. There's other processes and things in place from there, but just watch as you utilize some of this stuff on a consistent basis.
100%.
It opens it up.
And it sounds too simple to be helpful, but I'm telling you,
Yes.
it's going to change your life. It really will.
And there's a couple things that we'll revert back to from a past podcast on CO2 tolerance tests because there's some of that that'll overlie, but we're going to dive into some of the nitty gritty. So, Doc, why are we talking about the breath work and how is, let's say, even heart rate variability involved?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that we can directly see change with right away is our heart rate variability and how we can improve that via breath work. So when we are nasal breathing, we are improving our vagal tone, which then is improving the parasympathetic upregulation. And when we have good parasympathetic upregulation, we have a high heart rate variability, which is a good thing. And we've talked about, I think just in our recent pod, a lot about heart rate variability.
Yes.
So if you guys want to learn more about that, please go back to that pod. So what I want to take you guys to take away from is how we recover and how we train ties heavily to heart rate variability. And one of the quickest and most powerful ways to impact that is with breath work. And so one study showed that just regular slow-paced breathing increased heart rate variability and vagal tone, which shifted from sympathetic to parasympathetic state using just 6 breaths a minute.
Wow.
And it also in this study showed that patients had better stress resilience, cardiovascular recovery, and emotional regulation. This was a study in 2014. So again, I think you're going to start to see so many other things symptom-wise that you are going to see changes in just using breath work alone. And that's what really excited me as I started to dive more into these research.
So with this study, is that they're purposely just trying to take 6 respirations, just breaths in that
Slow.
minute?
So you're looking at least probably 2 to 3 second inhale and like a 10-second exhale, because that'll get you roughly about 10 to 13 seconds,
Should make sense.
a full breath, and then do that 6 times. That'll get you to a minute. Is my guess. It'll be close to that.
Especially if they're having their like awareness and attention just on trying to create those 6 respirations, those 6 breaths. I can see how you're trying to like slow down your breath,
For sure.
which kind of makes sense with calming the system down a little bit.
And a lot of patients are poor breathers and never really practice breath work. And so it might be difficult for some of you to practice this. You might feel like you have a weak breath. You might feel like you can't control it. And it's probably going to be worse if you're in a state of anxiety or stress, because we tend to having a tougher time breathing when we're in a state of panic. The sympathetic system is upregulated, and now we're shallow breaths. Again, brings back to doing that for a long period of time, become more chronic. We can limit the expansion of the ribs, talk about just how much that can impact our performance, our range of motion, movement, and Doc and I were just working on a little exercise to even just diagnose something like that, and then how breath work can improve just the rotation of the spine, things like that. And we'll probably give you a little bit of an exercise at the end here to see what we were doing, because Doc's range of motion improved by about 30%, and it was in 10 seconds.
That was
Just,
incredible.
yeah, off of 10 breaths. Yes, super excited to continue to explain this to you guys.
Dr. Addy, Dr. Jace, the AJ challenge. Stop right now. Start timer. Try to take 6 breaths in. Can you complete that?
Yes.
Is going to be the question mark.
And
Leave comments below.
And if you can't, we got work to do. No worries. We'll teach you how to prove that. So next up, breathwork reduces symptoms of anxiety and panic.
Which
exactly
makes sense
what we just
said,
talked about. So this was a study using pranayama breathing, which is very controlled breathing. It significantly reduced anxiety scores and improved mental calmness in medical students under academic stress.
Makes
I think
lot of
this
sense.
could be used for anyone under any kind of stress, but in this case, this was younger individuals who were very stressed in med school. But I think there's a lot of us, I shouldn't say a lot of us, I've never done it, but a lot of individuals, younger individuals, are using medication to help with their anxiety, to help with other things into that nature. And I think I just got done watching Way to Wellness, or Brigham.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was talking about how that has been one of the biggest cons in America is antidepressants and anti-anxieties. And he goes, we have been way oversold the effectiveness of those medications.
It's a fast, cheapish route.
Yeah, but he goes, it's effective in only 1 of 4 individuals, and it has a failure rate of reoccurrence of over 50%, meaning you can get on it, and then once you feel good, you're off of it. Eventually, over half are going to go back on it again.
Makes sense.
And so he goes, it's one of the biggest cons because we have been told that these things are so helpful for these people. But he goes, it's far from that. And I agree.
It's like an all-natural route versus a quick fix. If you're going to fix your body, you have to know how to utilize it. And that's where some of these tools come into play.
For sure. And so this is a good example of how we can still have great outcomes without needing medication.
And I think a good assessment for you guys, and we'll get into some other stuff here, but especially for anxiety and people in high stress jobs, even if this is yourself, take a look at your rib cage. If you feel like your ribs are like flared downwards more, as Doc would say, it's not the bucket handle where it goes side to side. Is
it the pump handle?
The pump handle.
Yep.
So the pump handle where your sternum, your front chest bone is almost tucked in and down to your body. You'll start noticing that the rib heads are facing more or less downwards. Thus, as you can see, if you're watching on the video, upper cross syndrome, where the head's coming forward, shoulders rounded forward. In this position, round forward, bring your shoulders in front of you and down. Try to take breaths in from here versus opening it up, shoulder blades, shrug, roll back, and then take a breath in. You're going to start noticing, just even with that, the limitations that you have taking a full breath in.
Yes.
So when you look at and assess whether it's yourself, family member, another person, that is the first thing that I look at from there. So it's just something small.
And a lot of you don't recognize that you found yourself in that position during the day if you've been busy and you're working. And we like to be flex or dominant during the day when we're really busy. We don't ever take the time to open up and give ourselves even that 10 to 15 second of good controlled breathing after being in a state of chronic breathing, which I'm about to get to in a little bit here on why chronic breathing can be really detrimental to our health. Overbreathing, excuse me.
Even holding emotions in naturally, subconsciously, your body wants to hold and round everything forward and keep it internally.
We'll start to shallow breathe. Yep. A whole bunch of other things.
You add stress into it.
Yep.
Hyperventilation, yeah,
And then next thing you know, our sympathetic system is now ramping up. We're not in a state of rest. And
medication.
among other things.
Yeah, yeah.
So this next one was cool. This study showed deep, slow breathing modulated pain perception through enhanced vagal tone and reduced central sensitization. It lowered your ability to be sensitive to pain. And so a lot of these patients that can really feel this right away are those who have central sensitization issues. So TMJ, IBS, fibromyalgia, reproductive pain, pelvic pain, migraines. I mean, there's so many other more, but there are patients, if you look up what are called COPCs, chronic overlapping pain symptoms, conditions, and you'll find that they all link together because of just this interference in how the brain perceives our body. And I've looked a lot into central sensitization, and so breath work has been something that I've liked for these patients because it does do such a great job to improve their pain tolerance. So that is another thing that if you are just feel like you're in a state of chronic pain and you haven't improved, you've tried everything, try breath work.
Yes.
It's free. It sounds too, it's like,
Other than your time spent.
I know it's frustrating to think that something as quick and easy as that could have been the missing link for you, but I recommend it. I really do.
I think there's more information on central sensitization on our jaw podcast.
Yeah.
So if you want to rewind, go in the videos, check that out.
Perfect. Next, improves VO2 max and endurance. We've talked about VO2 max, how that's such a great marker of our longevity. And trained breath work improved respiratory efficiency, tidal volume, CO2 tolerance, all leading to enhanced endurance, performance, and recovery.
Love that.
If you're looking to improve your VO2 max, other than just, of course, the work of endurance training, this is a way to give you an edge while you are training. Number 5, this one blew me away. This was incredible. Buteco breathing, which is a type of breathing practice, reduced bronchodilator usage or asthma inhalers by 90% and improved asthma control scores in adults. So,
do you want to get into what Buteco breathing is?
Yes, I can do it. Yeah, I'll briefly get into it, and then we can do the practice at the end. Buteco breathing is where we're inhaling for 2 to 3 seconds, exhaling for 3 to 4 seconds. After we exhale all the way out, pinch your nose, hold your breath, and then you're going to hold it for as long as you can until you need to take a breath. You're going to be hungry for air, is the way they explained it. And that type of style of practice of breathing has a lot of research and is shown to change a lot of things. And that's definitely one of the ones that I recommend right away for patients.
Love that.
Just because I think it is efficient and easy to follow. But for non-pharmacological tool for asthma management, I'm telling you, every asthmatic needs to use this as a tool to manage their breathing.
I know I have asthma. It's way more under control, better now. But this, when you're talking about this, almost reminds me of that conversation we had with Micah.
For sure.
And how he went into cold plunge, this cold water immersion. He started noticing his asthma improve from there. Maybe it's like you're trying to calm your system down in such a cold, internally stressful state, and controlling that breathing more with exhale breathing, which obviously if you're able to hold your breath with the long exhales, hold it out with the Buteco breathing, it kind of acts as the similar type of mechanism to a certain extent.
It definitely still has a very overpowering effect on the nervous system when you're in the cold plunge.
Yep.
And now you mix in not only just breath work, but breath work with a challenge.
Yes.
That really drives you to focus on your breath.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, and I'm telling you, every asthmatic should be doing cold plunges and breath work.
I like that.
I'm telling you, like it's going to change your life.
Yeah.
I wish more people have practiced it and we were able to at least see a larger amount of controls and versus outcomes, case studies. But Mike is not the only one that I've heard talk about. You go on Reddit and there's a bunch of people talking about how it really helped them out too. So I don't know. I wish we had more research showing that, but again, it's not fun to do a cold plunge. So I get it. I get you why you're out there thinking, I'm never going to do that. The inhaler is easy, but it ends up not being as effective. And that's the crappy part is when you really need it and the medication starts to fail for you. And that's what's scary.
So there's something to this breathing thing.
Oh, yeah. Next, enhances sleep quality, reduces snoring.
Oh.
This was a study on mouth taping, which then helped improve nasal breathing, which significantly reduced snoring frequency and duration in habitual mouth breathers. We're going to talk about mouth tape and nasal strips here towards the end.
Love that. Yeah, you have a lot of experience with some of that stuff.
I love it.
I did it a little bit myself.
I might start
Game changer.
with breath or with mouth tape here in the future. I still love my nose strips.
I've never done the mouth tape.
Never, yeah.
I naturally can have my mouth just closed. I feel like closed through the whole night and just breathe through my nose, but it depends on if I'm clogged in the sinuses.
The only thing for me is I do have a tough time still breathing through my nose, even though I have the strips.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that if I end up, because sometimes my nose strip will fall off, and so I'll have to rely more on my mouth. But if I can't breathe out of my mouth, I'm going to wake up suffocating, which I've done before.
Oh no.
When I get too close to my pillow.
Gotcha.
So I can't breathe in my pillow and I'm suffocating.
Oh.
So I could foresee that being an issue if I don't figure out how to keep my nose passage open.
And I'm sure you're not the only person on that.
Yeah. But I am excited because I do think mouth tape just basically takes away your ability to try to breathe through your mouth. And we know just how tough that can be on our health as chronic mouth breather, knowing what that does, how we can improve that with nasal breathing. Next, mild CO2 retention. So we talked about hypercapnia.
Yep.
So this was the part of the Bateca breathing where you're holding your breath and your nose, and it's causing an increase in CO2, mild increase in CO2. And what it does is it kicks oxygen off of your hemoglobin, and it allows you to utilize the oxygen finally. It's called the Bohr effect. So mild CO2 retention, improved oxygen unloading via the Bohr effect, stabilized neurocognitive performance under simulated stress in Navy divers. This is called an apnea drill, also known, similar to a CO2 tolerance. Yeah. Apnea drill, I believe, is where you hold your breath and you just walk as long as you can.
Interesting.
And you'll see towards the end of how much more difficult it is for you. It's funny. It's funny to see.
I wonder how I wish we looked this up. If you guys know, obviously you can look it up, ChatGPT or Google or whatever, on how this even came effect.
Right.
Like who in their right mind would start thinking about sick in their mind? Who would holding your breath and doing as much exercise as walking as long as you can? Do they measure, is that what the distance then?
I don't know. I'd have to look. But what I do know is
the case.
These Navy divers said that their focus, in high-stake environments, just upregulated just by practicing more mild CO2 retention exercises.
And then if you're in that stressful state, could you challenge yourself in thinking challenges, cognitive challenges, as you're in that stressful state? So once you're in it, you don't become panicked and whatnot, which makes sense. Very smart.
Yeah, I haven't practiced a lot of mild CO2 retention before. So that's what I'm going to start practicing when I'm doing my breath work. I'm going to see if that makes a difference.
I know I have done some elevation training mask work, which, we got to get you in for a session there. I took Corey away.
I haven't done yet.
It's incredible. I use it for when I was playing college soccer. It's pretty much a mask that you put on your nose over your mouth, which you can change how much oxygen comes in through the mask. So it almost mimics if you're in a higher elevation state, depending on how much oxygen is limited coming in the mask, whether it's 5,000 to 12,000 feet elevation. It's very challenging. It almost forces you to focus on the exhale breathing after you go through a bout of effort. Depends on the intensity, of course. And then once you're able to control and lower your breath after that intensity, get back to baseline, go and do the effort again, and then re-regulate it back. So it's almost like you're pushing boundaries. So I think it was the last episode on how there was bumper plates on how Andy Gilpin talked about it.
Yes.
Do you want to explain what that was?
Yeah, he had basically said that in order to improve and have a strong HRV, we want to think of our HRV as a bowling lane. And whenever we don't, let's say, stress ourselves or try to take our bowling ball and go into the bumper lanes, our bowling lane gets smaller. But he goes, if you can constantly put yourself in a state of stress and then bring your back self down to regulation, into a calm state, he goes, that will keep your bowling lane wide. And that's good.
That's what you want. Yep.
In regards to bowling, obviously, the bigger the lane, the less chance you go in the gutter. And he goes, But think of it like this. When your lane is really small, any bit of stress, you're on the bumper now. And that is going to create a sense of overwhelming stress and maybe tougher to regulate. And your valley is a lot smaller. You want a big valley because you want to be able to ramp yourself up to stress in a controlled manner, get to that state, and then come way back down and be in a very nice, safe, calm manner.
Love that.
And that's helpful because a lot of people, unfortunately, are stuck with a small lane right now. And so they go and do a bout of stress and they're like, nope, I couldn't even walk 5 minutes because now I'm in pain and I can't do it anymore. And unfortunately, that might be all you have right now. But you got to get to that bumper. Can't just stay in that bubble right now. And there are many ways to push that stress boundary, but sometimes even driving your car, some people have a tough time just being in. There are a lot of very anxious and stressful humans in this world. And
Yes.
I think if you're one of those listening, you maybe understand this analogy quite well.
And that's any type of stress, whether it's stress from the cold, heat shock protein
Yeah.
stress from heat therapy, breathing, it's emotional stress. Like life is not easy. You have to push yourself, push those boundaries.
Yeah. Get out of your comfort zone, start to learn new things and really try to learn them.
I love that. That was a very good analogy.
But yeah, no, I love it. I loved his analogy and I think it makes a lot of sense. A couple more. Enhances emotional regulation, reduces reactivity. Again, helps you have less negative emotion reactivity and when exposed to distressing stimuli. Breath can be a pause button during emotional overwhelm is how they explained it in the study. When you are emotional, having a tough time, use breath work to calm you down. It's very quick. It does work really well. I've used it over my years of when I've struggled with anxiety and having that feeling of doom in my stomach and tightness. And now I can get that to go away in about 10 to 15 seconds.
That's nice.
Very easily.
Yeah. And I know, like, past myself, like when I've had a panic attack before, all my mind and attention goes to the breath. You try to eliminate any other stimuli, whether it's closing your eyes, stepping away from a stressful situation. And if you want to calm down, more exhales, more holding at end after the exhale, double inhale to the long exhale, that works really well.
Yeah,
Just
focus
those
on the
small
breath
things.
out. Focus on the breath out
Stated.
when you're in that state of panic. That'll at least give you one thing to just think about. That's it.
Yeah.
I know you got 7,000 things going through your brain when you're having a panic attack. It's very scary.
Yeah.
But breath out is what I'd recommend.
Especially when it's like you're almost gasping for air. Even just that extra inhale, even if you're the shallow breathing or like this small impulse breathing or breaths, excuse me, over time you'll start noticing you're able to take more breaths in for longer exhale as well. Open up that bumper lane.
I don't know if I'd recommend this right away, getting into the coldest of water, but coldish water, maybe like 50 degrees to start if you struggle with panic attacks, because it can help simulate the feeling of what your body goes through during a panic attack, which is you can't control your breath. It's a state of stress. Now, if you want to be truly mean to yourself and just go for it, you can go jump in 40-degree weather.
Yeah.
You will have the same feeling of going through a panic attack when you're in that cold water. You can't catch your breath. It is right to your system, but you could start to practice calming yourself down in that state. And I think it's a great way for you to manage your panic attacks.
Yeah. Exciting.
This is awesome. Lastly, improves blood pressure in hypertensive patients. Daily slow breathing exercise reduce systolic and diastolic blood pressure in patients with hypertension. And lastly, it strengthens our respiratory muscles and our diaphragm, which is useful for runners, swimmers, CrossFit athletes, anyone who is prone to breathlessness.
So if you're monitoring your blood pressure, if you're on any type of medication for your vascular system, start getting into this breath work. More oxygen comes in, like what Doc said. If you're holding in more like small, you're not able to take a full breath in, your oxygen is not going to be able to get to the tissues, thus limited on healing of extremities, arms, body. So get into a breath work activity if you're on blood pressure meds, thus the research from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that you just brought that up because that's going to tie me into what I want to talk about next. So shallow breathing, habitual shallow breathing, and you just said not being able to deliver oxygen or nutrients to the blood.
Yes.
That's Exactly. And so we have plenty of individuals who are chronic hyperventilators in a way. It's weird to think about, but they don't have a good breath in, breath out. They maybe are stuck in a flexor dominant state a lot, poor posture, upper cross syndrome, super stressed all the time. Can't remember the last time they probably ever actually sat in a room by themselves and just breathed for a minute or two. And maybe it's someone who has 4 kids and works a job. And it's not that their life is in shambles, it's just they're so busy that they never had a chance to just sit and relax. I can understand that too. So,
And that's exact same situation. And I've done this with an individual. It's been a while back. I think maybe when you were working here still, to where it was a parent, and I challenged him. I said, okay, YouTube, Google, doesn't matter. Breath work, game, or challenge with kids. And then it goes through like a simplistic kind of activity, and then you bring your kids into it. Obviously, it depends on if they're able to like understand, and then go through that challenge with them together.
yep.
So then you're teaching your kids, you're de-stressing yourself,
And
bring
you
everyone together.
and you get your 10, 15 minutes, hopefully.
Hey, there you
Heck,
go.
you might put them to sleep. That's like a real win, but you'd be surprised.
Yes.
So this habitual pattern of breathing too rapidly or deeply, especially through the mouth and chest, even when the body doesn't require more oxygen, disrupts the O2-CO2 balance. And we're going to talk a little bit about that right now.
Love it.
When we are breathing out over a chronic state, we are lowering the amount of CO2 that we have in the body. Now, this can affect pH regulation and it impairs oxygen release from hemoglobin. So we just talked about the Bohr effect. When we actually increase the amount of CO2 in the body by hypercapnia, which is holding your breath, that increases CO2, kicks oxygen off our hemoglobin, and our body now is able to use that oxygen in our cells. So we don't have that oxygen delivery with poor CO2 levels. There is more sympathetic system upregulation, which increases anxiety and muscle tension. Chronic chest breathing causes tension in the accessory muscles, weakens the diaphragm. It probably can cause a lot of even the pains. Dr. Jace was just talking about one of his patients, a lot of chest pain, tightness. Maybe
Yeah.
they struggle with panic attacks too. But this leads to paradoxical breathing patterns and overall fatigue over time because it can cause lightheadedness, tingling in the fingers and lips if it's really bad, anxiety, panic attacks, shortness of breath, despite increased efforts to try to improve this.
Yeah, I think even, and this is not every person, it's more on the rare side. If you start noticing you have this pain when breathing, well, one, you might either have a rib at a place to where it's forcing muscle spasms along the rib cage or on your backside. So you might want to see a chiropractor or PT just to either work that bone into place. But if let's say you have, and this is going back to what Doc said with that patient that we have, to where he's having consistently tenderness, pain one side, but it's a little bit on both, to where you just can't get that to recover. Definitely flexor dominant. So what we're working on is opening things up. We're gonna go, after hearing some of this stuff, way more on the breath work, inhalation, opening up the rib cage, and that goes back into the bucket handle, which is anytime you tilt side to side, it opens up the ribs, usually on the sides, versus the, what was the other one you said?
So we have the bucket handle and then
Side
we
to
have the
side.
pump handle.
Pump handle.
Yeah.
So forward and backwards, if you think you're pumping a well, same thing with the sternum, opening up the opposite way. And then if you want to create an apex where the biggest area of curvature is, so it would be tilting away. So let's say if your eyes are not watching the video, we have pain on the front left side. You would want to extend back and then tilt to create where that area is. And you want to almost open and stretch it up and then go into some breath work from there, build it up in terms of the amount of time of your session of breath work. But
Yeah,
it's just an avenue I want to explore a little bit more with him.
I do too. Like I practice a lot of breath work, but I want to be so much more intentional after
Yes.
hearing a lot of these things, especially for patients too. There's so many patients now that I can't wait to use this on just
Same.
because of how helpful it was to hear all this. But so, Doc, you had just provided a few research articles for actual certain medical conditions
Yes.
and how breathwork has shown to improve those. And do you want to just touch on that really quick?
Absolutely. So I know we brought up asthma, where it's harder for you to take breaths in. Usually that's due to a vasoconstriction of the bronchioles, due to any irritation, more on a chemical signaling pathway, but then also it can have an inflammatory connection as well. So if you have allergies, it can induce asthma. If you have sports-induced asthma where it's harder for you to take breath in, that can sometimes follow if you're in a cold environment, let's say hockey, or you're outside in like cold winter sports where you're increasing the amount of effort that you are able to go into. There's that connection to where for some individuals it can induce asthma, which makes it harder to breathe, get a full breath in, and then it limits, obviously, like Doc said, with the Bohr effect, blood and tissue healing from there. We're noticing breath work, like we said previously, improves the CO2 tolerance and how you can either hold the CO2 in your body and then through the coldness or through the effort, breathing that out, which helps for the bronchospasms. Same thing with nasal breathing and Buteco style breathing also have shown positive results, which I'm excited to get into the Buteco breathing here in a sec. But we started noticing that even for individuals with COPD, and some of those individuals that naturally it's harder for them to breathe, you may start noticing like blueness around their lips, just it's not able, it affects the vascular system. They're not able to take a full breath in as well. And it also helps for them with breathwork for improving oxygen efficiency and also reduce the amount of sessions of like breathlessness to where it's like they just can't take a breath in. Purposely, when they're not in these episodes, pushing that barrier of that bumper lane. I love that analogy. It can work for so many things.
I know.
To where you're able to open up that bumper lane versus the individuals with COPD, the bumper lane is very thin. We also notice in POTS or positional hypostatic, what was it, tension syndrome?
Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Tachycardia, thank you so much. Thus, if for those individuals, and this is where you might start noticing, if you have POTS, watch the rib cage. Is it flared down? If so, you want to open that up. And we've noticed in certain studies, even a study in 2020, where it helps regulate heart rate and even blood pressure variability. So those individuals with POTS, it affects the vascular system. It affects some individuals with joints and loose connective tissue to a certain extent as well. Now, from there, if you need to get breath work, especially if there's ribs coming in and out of place, getting a regular breath cycle will help significantly from there on that one. And then even individuals with vagal tone for, let's say, if they have, whether it's anything affecting the vagus nerve, anything affecting
a lot of people had
the
COVID
symptom. Oh,
have that.
I love that you brought that up.
It's actually one of the biggest things I'll see post-COVID.
And just so, Doc, have you worked with patients that had COVID for just breath work itself?
100%. 100%.
How would you
I've
with
had patients who came to me just for long COVID symptoms. Not even, well, some came for lung issues. Some came from nervous system issues, like brain issues from long COVID. And so vagal nerve dysfunction was one of the more common increases in diagnoses over the 20 to 23 period. A lot of them came from the Mayo.
Wow.
These patients, and they all had the same diagnosis. They didn't know what was wrong with them. They didn't know how to fix it. And they'd go, we were in Minnesota, so we had the Mayo right there. So they'd go to the Mayo, and the Mayo would just say, you have a vagal nerve dysfunction. That's what they would finally test them for.
Wow.
And some of these patients, I'm telling you, one guy, he would start exercising, and his body would just shut down.
Wow.
Like it would just shut down. Like he couldn't do anything. His heart rate would go through the roof. He'd start sweating, and he'd have to just lay there.
Good Lord.
All because his vagal tone was just so unregulated from where COVID has jacked up the part of the brain.
Wow.
Yeah, it's scary it can be.
So even if you're not having COVID symptoms, but you've had COVID, you still obviously would want to go through this breath work.
I think so.
Especially to re-regulate your
Especially
system.
if you've had lung issues, any type of nervous system impact. COVID has done a lot of nervous system impact, some mild, some severe. But we would do so many different things, but breath work was a big one.
I love that. So essentially, the vagus nerve, it connects a lot of the internal organs from like the stomach to the heart to the lungs, all the way to mid-brain center. So it's almost like a link between your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. I know we touched on that earlier in the podcast, but if you want to bring those two together, and then if you listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I was just going through a lot of his stuff over the
Crazy
weekend.
stuff.
Dude, I know we don't even have too much on this, but you attach an emotional state, you attach attention and focus, and then you re-regulate and get into more of a parasympathetic state. You're able to change connections in the body like you wouldn't believe.
Yes.
And I think that's a whole podcast. We have to go into some of his work because that can open up.
And Dispenza's got a
lot.
crazy story. For those of you who have never heard of him, he was in a horrible car accident. Was that what it
Yes.
was?
Yep.
And should have died.
Yep.
I think broke almost every bone in his, like, it was like
It was bad.
the fact that he is living, let alone achieving and looking like a normal human right now.
At an older age.
My goodness.
Yeah.
The power of the mind, that is your case study right there.
Yeah. And then, shoot, he also has brain scans of so many other people changing their states. And I don't want to say too much of this because I'm afraid for censorship purposes. There's conditions that he's helped other individuals cure, you could probably say, that would go against the norm.
Yes.
Which is baffling in itself. I feel, we'll probably get into a podcast relate to some of his work from there, so stay tuned. But yeah, man, that combine some of that, it's incredible.
He's a legend.
Yes.
And grateful that he has just kept trying to spread the message of what he went through and what he's built now off of techniques of healing himself. It really is incredible. I know a lot of people who use his book, friends of mine too.
100%.
They didn't even know he was a chiropractor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right?
It was crazy.
It's like some people, it's unique that they're still alive in certain situations to where, whether it's fate, I don't know, but they come back and they're able to help and change so many lives to advance the human evolution because of the stuff that they've gone through. Thank God.
So, Doc, you had 4 different breathwork practices here. Do you want to just quickly go through each of those?
Beautiful. And some of these too, when we get into the application and as a hot sec, we'll get into some more of these a little bit more in depth. So one is diaphragmatic breathing. And actually, this might be a perfect time if you want to show people the difference between diaphragmatic breathing and chest breathing.
Yeah.
And then we can get
some
of the others. Yeah,
let's do
it.
Okay.
Cool.
So we'll start with diaphragmatic breathing. Now, applications for this, in my opinion, would be patients who have tight stomach from more anxiety-based issues.
Holding everything.
Yep. Tend to have a more poor posture. They want to also try to influence the vagal tone as best as they can. And it's just a quick way to start practicing your breath, I think.
Yeah, get your mind and body
connected. I think so. It is, I think so. So this is where you'll have one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach. You can lie down or sit doing this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to inhale through the nose, but your goal is to have your hand move on your stomach out, but your hand on your chest, try to keep still. Don't let your breath move your hand on your chest. So we're trying to influence our stomach breathing using expanding our diaphragm and out. And now some diaphragmatic practice users, they breathe out through pursed lips. So you'll breathe in through the nose like this, and then breathe out.
Like you're blowing through a straw.
Like you're blowing through a straw. And this helps you to slow your exhale. Again, increase the vagal tone. You want a long exhale if we're trying to improve the vagal tone. So breath in again through the nose.
And out as you're breathing through.
Out pursed lips. Your hand on your belly should be moving in and out when you breathe. So do that. I would repeat that 10 to 15, 20 times. Great way to start practicing the breath.
Yeah.
The extended exhale, I'm going to switch this. The double inhale, exhale, extended exhale is probably a little bit more effective. So that's where you're going to breathe in as much as you can.
Yep.
And then quick double inhale. Focus on exhaling as long as you can. So you'll breathe in again, in, double inhale.
Even if you get a third or fourth inhale at the top.
For sure.
As much as you can.
Get as much of an inhale as you can. You're trying to recruit as much of those alveolar sacs as possible. Most humans only use 60% of their lung capacity because of just how shallow breathers we are.
Wow.
It's bad. So that is one way to really drive more usage of our alveoli. using that kind of practice.
And Doc, let's get into, because the Buteyko technique and box breathing will work into this, but let's get into the torso. So the thing that you learned from Greg Rose that we talked about previously, let's add that into here so you can see with the diaphragmatic breathing versus chest breathing.
I love that. So one way you can practice, we'll call it rib expansion, with if we have a lack of rotation either in our lumbar spine or mostly in our thoracic spine. A lot of people don't know they have this issue. Now, if you're a golfer, or if you require a lot of rotation with your job, you'll notice, if you've noticed that you haven't had a good ability to either turn one way or the other, maybe you have a lot of restriction in this area, what have you. There's a very quick way that you can assess to see if you should practice this. And a lot of people need to.
I was blown away.
Yeah, like some people need this more than others, but a lot of you don't breathe very well and probably have a decreased rotation in your thoracic spine. And just this breathing practice alone can improve that. And so that's what I was working on Doc with. So the assessment first, we need to get down on our stomach, and we're only looking at how to influence the thoracic spine rib cage area here.
Mid-back,
So one way we're gonna assess that is we're gonna get down on our knees like this. And we're going to try to curl over and lock out our lumbar spine. And we're doing that because we're only trying to assess rotation up here. So we're going to lock it out.
Kind of like child's pose, right?
In a way, yeah, like child's pose. One arm behind your back, and we're going to try to bring your chest parallel to a wall near you, and you're going to try to open it up as much as you can. Now, you should have about, some people can get to full, like a straight line 180 degrees up and down between this arm and this arm.
Both sides.
Both sides.
Yep.
So again,
it almost forces you to breathe or hold the breath in through the rib cage lungs as you're trying to rotate.
Yes. Now, when we were working with Doc, one of his sides, he could get perfect up and down 180 degree angle with both of his sides. Or with one of his sides, excuse me.
Yep.
The other side, we had about 10 to 20 degrees to go. And so we did this breathing practice to try to increase rib expansion and improve his range of motion, which we absolutely got to. So this is the practice now. You can do this lying down, or you can do this seated. It's probably more effective to do it lying down. So what we're going to do, we're going to focus 5 breaths on the lower part of the rib cage and 5 breaths on the upper part of the rib cage. We talked about the bucket handle and we talked about the pump handle. Down here is the bucket handle. We want to think of expanding our rib cage out this way with the bucket handle.
Laterally outwards.
Yes.
Yep.
So you're going to put your hands down here. You're going to take a breath in. Think of expanding those hands out. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose.
I'm doing this 5
and then,
times.
Yep,
right?
So that was 5 for me.
Okay.
Now you're going to think putting your fist right on your sternum. And now this is going to come up and down like a pump handle. So when you breathe, think of moving your chest up, your hand up and down. That's the motion we're going to try to get to. One more. Good. Now we're going to get back to assessment state. And you're going to revisit how much rotation that you have. So you're going to lock out the spine, curl all the way up, and I can already tell I have probably about 5 to 10% improved motion on that side.
It's even better than it was prior for me too.
Perfect. Now that's just one very simple way to explain how breath work can improve a lot more than just what we're talking about. So rib expansion, even if you've had a cough recently and you've just had a lot of tightness in the chest, tightness in the back.
Yes.
These are all applications to where you'd want to assess that for yourself and then maybe improve it using the exercise. That's a quick one to throw in with patients too. That's what's cool.
That's
like
so
you're
much. Doc, yeah, thank you for going through that too. Because you were saying even individuals where it's even hard to get into a child's pose, and then let's say they're not even able to put their
yes.
hand behind their back.
Then you'll notice just how bad your scapular thoracic rhythm is, how bad you have. A lot of people too think that their shoulder issue is their shoulder, but that's another piece people miss is poor thoracic spine rotation and mobility.
Yes.
And we have a patient with shoulder pain. You have yet to figure out, you've tried everything. It's maybe not coming from the neck. Now you're like, all right, if it's not the neck, what else could it be? Do that test assessment, and they have shoulder pain and they're not even able to do that.
Where would you start if an individual can't bring their hand behind their back?
Then we've already
Then you
got
would
to that
start
point. It's
going
breath
back to
work
the
time.
breath work.
See what we can
Yeah.
do to expand that rib cage. You
Let's-
go back to that, and now they can at least put it behind their back.
And then get into
You
rotation.
knew it wasn't really their shoulder. It
Love
was,
that.
or there was a piece missing.
Yes.
Could have shoulder issues, but a big part of that also came from the fact they didn't have good thoracic mobility.
So you then want to start 5 breaths through the belly.
Yep.
5 breaths through the chest.
Yep.
Build it up multiple times throughout the day, I'm assuming.
Yep, absolutely.
Beautiful.
And then Greg has so many more resources on his website, mytpi.com.
Greg Rose.
Greg Rose, he is the founder of Titleist Performance Institute. He's worked with some of the best, if not all the best, golfers in the world, and proving, obviously, that's a huge part of their life, is making sure that they have good rotation in the thoracic spine. But his ability to not only impact their lives, but everyone else who needs this kind of work. Trust me, everyone. You'd be surprised at how many people just need to do that little assessment on themselves and improve that area of their body. But yeah,
I love that.
super fun to see that change so quickly, and just shows you the importance of breath work. So
Yeah, and then let's go into a couple of these other ones, and then I want Doc to go through the Buteyko nasal breathing because I love that. And I know we've been through box breathing before, where you create a breath in through the inhalation, hold it for the same amount of time, breathe out through the same amount of time, hold at the end for the same amount of time. So we're creating a box with either inhalation, exhalation, and the holds at the top or bottom, or holding with inhalation or holding out with exhalation. So the basics on box breathing usually goes in 4 seconds, where you inhale, hold up top 4 seconds, exhale 4 seconds, hold at the bottom 4 seconds. And you can go through that anywhere from 5 to 10 times.
That's another good one, very quick to practice.
Yep. That can build up 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds.
Yep.
It gets more challenging.
I love box breathing too.
Yep.
That's a great one.
Yes, but yeah,
So,
Doc.
yeah, Buteyko breathing. We're going to go through that. You'll want to sit upright for this one.
Does it matter seated, standing?
It doesn't. You probably could do laying down or standing, but sitting is probably just fine. So what we're going to do, we're going to inhale through our nose 2 to 3 seconds. So we're going to start like that. Exhale 3 to 4 seconds through the nose again. After the exhale, now pinch nose and hold breath.
After the exhale.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, Doc, you keep going. I'm going to coach. You're going to wait until you are hungry for air. I want you to understand that word, hungry for air. So there's an urge to breathe. Okay. Now resume calm nose breathing. Calm nose breathing. Just simple breaths in and out through the nose. Try to gain regulation back to center. And then now you repeat that 5 to 10 times.
Okay.
So you'll find that it does a mixture of 2 things, right? It's mixing in more of the parasympathetic upregulation with a longer exhale. And we're doing mild hypercapnia, which is increasing CO2 in the body, which just utilizes our oxygen more efficiently as we're kicking it off hemoglobin with the Bohr effect. What are you feeling at all right now, Doc? Anything?
It got easier after the second one.
Okay, sure.
But it was that initial panic where after you exhale and then hold the nose, you can start feeling it. Okay, I want to take a breath. Can you hold it more? Can you hold it more? And then you get a point to where you can't hold it anymore, and then you have to let it out, and then from there, trying to re-regulate everything back to normal breath.
And some of you
through the
may not be
nose.
able to hold it in for 5 seconds, and that's fine. You're just going to keep
Mm-hmm.
practicing that. Some of you, after breathing or holding in for so long, you might have this flushing feeling or even a state of maybe some stress or anxiety.
I feel more alert right now, though.
Nice.
Just even 2 sets. Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
right.
I love it. I do. So that is definitely
Wow.
one where I would recommend you guys, maybe more advanced breathers or breathwork trainers, just to give that a try.
Wow, that's good.
The other couple things that I was just going to talk on was the apnea walk and
please.
the CO2 tolerance. How about I take apnea walks?
Sure,
You want to talk
let's do
CO2
it.
tolerance? Okay, so
Yep.
apnea walks, this is where you exhale as long as you can,
Okay.
and then you're going to hold and you're going to walk 10 to 20 steps. Now, I've also seen it where you can go as long as you can, whether that's hold your breath as long as you can or walk as long as you can. Now, what this is going to do is going to build CO2 tolerance again. It's going to talk about mild hypercapnia like we talked about.
Yes.
But try it on your walk. So
Good
when you're
point.
walking, you're
Love
already
that.
there. Just try to exhale out all the air you have, hold, and then do 20 steps and see how you do.
You probably want to hold and pinch it off your nose, because if you feel like you're holding exhale
Good
out,
point.
yeah, you might be shallow breathing through your nose. You might not realize it.
Good point.
Yeah, no, I love that.
So we talked the word CO2 tolerance, Doc. Do you want to just
Yes.
touch a little bit about how you incorporate CO2 tolerance testing in your practice and how that works with your patients?
Yeah, and a lot of this reverts back to the episode we touched on last visit, to where you want to see, and a lot of this is checking the regulation of your nervous system, whether it's sympathetic, your fight or flight, versus your parasympathetic, the rest digest, but more or less how well you can regulate your nervous system to increase the power output. So let's say you worked out or you had a stressful situation for a few days straight, and you're trying to think, do I go into a stressful workout? Do I need to downregulate and give my body a break, a rest? This would be a perfect test for you. So you'd want to go in, and it's very similar to the Buteyko breathing. However, instead of holding the breath out and holding everything on exhalation, you would want to see the amount of time and how long it takes you to exhale, breathe out. So almost like you're breathing out through a straw. So there's a couple ways you can go into this. You either want to inhale, exhale, about 2 to 3 seconds each one, 3 to 4 times. And then the last one, you want to pretty much go into inhalation. And then from there, start a timer, slowly starting to exhale, breathe out. And it's the time that you're exhale, breathing out, to where you want to get anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute of the amount of time you're exhaling. If you're able to get over a minute of exhaling out, your nervous system's good. Let's say if you want to do more work, if you're still feeling, if your nervous system is fatigued, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute is okay. If it takes you less than 30 seconds to breathe out, you want to definitely back off in the day as well. So it's just one of those things where it's a quick test that you can re-regulate your nervous system, especially if you're feeling fatigued. This would be assessment.
Now, can I purse my lips with that one? Okay.
Yep. Purse
'Cause
your lips.
if you don't, I
Yep.
feel like you'll quickly breathe it out. So you almost have to try to regulate your exhale with that kind of style of breathing out.
Absolutely. So what did you feel in going through?
So I got to probably 30 seconds.
Cool.
Roughly. I could probably get longer. I just wanted to see if I could get to that. But what I noticed was towards the end, it was burning lungs. Now, I bet you there are individuals who get to that point quicker just because their tolerance is less. I also know Galpin talks about this a lot too, but what he basically said was your recovery ties a lot to this test too.
Yes.
He goes, if you feel like you're always in pain after the gym, and he goes, you've tried everything you can as far as electrolytes and everything you can think of. And he goes, do this test, and I bet you're going to fail it if you don't feel like have a good recovery.
Yes.
And he goes, it's also the CO2 O2 exchange, and it's a breath work and vagal, like it's all that too that ties in heart rate variability, breath work. And he goes, you're missing that. And he goes, you'd be surprised how many athletes I've changed just off of heart rate variability, CO2 tolerance, and it was just like a curtain. Like I unfolded behind a curtain, and I'm like, where has this been? So it's cool that these simple tests can give us so much information.
100%.
Yeah.
Even some of the people that I've used this with higher end level athletes, and then individuals that have had more experience of going through this exact test, and they start noticing, okay, 30 seconds to a minute is not the best barrier for them to monitor their nervous system. It's more of a general parameter for the basic population,
Yeah, of
if we
course.
will. So those individuals, some of them is anywhere from 45 seconds to like a minute and a half.
Sure.
Their nervous system's okay. If they can go longer than that, even better. But if it's less than that 45 seconds, they start noticing all the other symptoms of fatigue, mental drain, and they're even thinking, is it even worth going into this session today? Then they go through the test, and then they can create that barrier. So it's either one, you're having more of a rest recovery day, trying to more or less help influence tissue healing, but that would be a perfect situation where you add in breath work in that same session.
Absolutely.
Because you're working on different parameters of the body. For this one is recovering the nervous system, but also, like we said with the analogy, you put that bowling lane in front of you. Are you able to get to the bumpers to the sides versus narrowing that lane? So let's increase that stress tolerance, whether it's cold exposure, whether it's breathing, breath work, and even you add in different positions. Let's say you're a golfer, right? So Doc, you would go in, and this goes back to the Greg Rose of the stressful situations. We just had the Masters with Rory, and I can't
Oh, yeah.
imagine like what he got to the final 18th hole. He missed like a, was it 8 foot, 6 foot
Yeah.
putt. You can't imagine the stress that's going through the mind. Can you build up that same situation, but then for him, in terms of rotating the rib cage coming through and still controlling the breath? So are you able to go through that shot? Are you mentally able to downregulate? And then from there, in a stressful situation when the whole world's looking at you, are you able to perform in this stressful state? And that's where some of these situations come into play. Golf, whether it's hockey, whether it's soccer,
Yep.
stressful situations, are you able to calm your system down? Because naturally, when you're able to calm down, you're able to cognitively think and send resources to the brain and not just your body
Yeah.
that's holding on to them.
What's cool is they've done a lot of golfers have come out. They love Whoop. So
Yeah,
many golfers love
love that.
Whoop.
Yes.
And Wyndham Clark was one of them. He had a lot of stressful times in his life. He lost his mom. He had to do like sports therapy. He had a sports
Yes.
therapist walk with him, talk about like more mental focused stuff. We touched on it a little bit on the podcast.
Yes.
But he tracked his heart rate during rounds too, and noticed it was a lot higher in certain stressful states, and he worked on getting that to be lower and track that number. And there are times you look at athletes, and I don't remember which one specifically, but some of those athletes are so just mentally sound that their heart rate doesn't elevate above 45, even in the most stressful of games.
Wow.
Because they have such good management of their, I think, I can't remember who they measured. I think it was Kevin Garnett.
Sure.
They
That
had
sounds
put a tracker on him all game, and his pulse didn't go over like 45.
That's incredible.
And Wyndham was at like 180 at one point because it was gotten to that point. So it tells you heart rate variability, pulse, making sure you're managing your breath work. I can only imagine what Rory's was.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
can't
Like it'd be
imagine.
fun to see that data.
Was he? Because I know he wears Whoop, but I don't know if he was wearing it.
I don't think he probably was.
I would love to see that.
JT, Justin Thomas, I know he wears it. Those guys, but yeah, super fun. I love it. I think it's great.
And then I know there's one other small challenge that I definitely want to go into. So I know we touched on wearing the oxygen mask.
Yes.
I know we touched on like the apnea walk, just holding the breaths out, this Buteyko breath technique. Let's also get into another Dr. Addy, Dr. Jace, AJ challenge. 7-day challenge. This is where you go into nasal breathing only in your warm-ups, or let's say nasal breathing, just breathing through your nose and not through your mouth on any car ride, 7 days straight. Be purposeful with this. You'll start noticing you're able to open up, create this awareness, open up the rib cage.
Yes.
Are you able to complete it? That is your challenge to those that are listening. Start it right now. If this is the first time you listening to this, either short form podcast, start the timer today. Start right now. Are you able to do a couple minutes of just breathing through your nose? Go into an FFO workout, let's say, another small challenge workout. and then try to downregulate your nervous system. So go into longer exhale breathing, get it back to baseline, and then continue on from there. So whether it's in your workout, whether it's every drive that you're taking your kids to work, your 7-day challenge, take note, leave comments below of how you feel, what have you noticed symptom-wise, what have you noticed for yourself. Oh, you'll be surprised what
I'm
your body is
excited.
able to.
I actually think a lot of you are going to start using this so often after you start practicing it.
Yes.
No, it's great.
Doc. Oh, I'm excited for this. I know
All
we
right.
touched on this in the past.
I've been meaning to put this on
Let's
a
go.
pod. I'm glad it's this one because I think it'll tie really well into what we're talking about. We're going to talk about mouth tape and nasal strips. These are tools you can use for not only improving your breath, but improving your sleep and performance. Because when we are breathing better, sleeping better, our heart rate variability improves, our recovery improves, among so many other things when we're sleeping. If you want to know how good sleep is, go back to our sleep pod because that was such a wealth of knowledge into that podcast. Okay, so we'll start with mouth taping first. Mouth taping involves placing a breathable, skin-safe tape over the lips during sleep or training to promote nasal breathing and prevent mouth breathing. Why does this matter? Mouth breathing is linked to reduced nitric oxide uptake, poor sleep quality, fragmented REM or rapid eye movement sleep,
REM sleep,
increased risk of snoring or obstructive sleep apnea, increased sympathetic nervous system activity. Not only that, ties to obesity, ties to hypertension, ties to anxiety, ties to depression. Like mouth breathing has been tied to a lot of different things. Breath by James Nestor is a good book that just shows you how bad mouth breathing is, and it does a really great dive into the evolution of humans, cranium evolution, how we formed noses, all those things. A really good book. Now, mouth taping does all those things. Promotes nasal breathing and improves sleep, enhances recovery, boosts performance. It can even reduce dry mouth and gum disease risk. Cavity increase, mouth breathing. That was another thing he talked about in the book, which was crazy. So, some research regarding nasal breathing and mouth tape. I had 2 for nasal breathing. This was in 1980, actually. They were studying this in 1980. Demonstrated that nasal breathing enhances arterial oxygenation compared to mouth breathing during rest and light exercise. 1985 found nasal breathing improves diaphragmatic activation and oxygen exchange. Now, they didn't start mouth taping for the research until quite recently, actually. This was the only one I found in 2022 using what's called Somnifix, which is a mouth tape that showed significant reduction in snoring frequency and duration in mild to moderate snorers.
Interesting. So if someone has sleep apnea where they have to use a machine, is that something that they would want to utilize?
As long as they know they have good nasal breathing.
Okay.
Obviously, I have a deviated septum, so it's tougher for me to constantly rely on my nose if I have congestion or things like that. But the nasal strips do help. But I think using what they said was a breathable skin-safe tape is more helpful too, because I think if you try to, you can still get some air through it. Again, I got to try it.
That's what a lot of experts were saying, that the tape is very easy to move. It can go over beards, but it also has a little thin layer to where like oxygen can keep going in and out.
So
but
it's still
it holds
safe.
Everything. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've heard a lot on that side.
Have you ever used mouth tape?
I have never
No,
used any nasal strips, mouth tape, but I've purposely going into sleep tried to make sure my mouth was somewhat closed. Do you know that time to where you feel like your lips are sticky's not really maybe the right word, but they're able to hold together easier than other times. So that's where I try to focus that if I feel like allergy season or feel if it's hard for me to, if I'm mouth breathing, I purposely then go and try to make sure my mouth is closed. But I'm sure it's same mechanism there.
What I hear a lot of is hostage tape is another brand that people are using. I'm trying to think of some other one. There might be one that says Gorilla. I don't know.
Because you can just Amazon, YouTube these.
Yeah,
And
there's so many. Hormozy loves hostage tape. That's his favorite.
That's good to know.
I think so does Andy Elliott. But yeah, I would look up. There's probably plenty of brands. Those are the ones that I've heard. You're really just going to apply the tape before sleep. Lips should be gently closed, but not forced shut.
Ooh,
and then, of course, remove upon awakening so there's no adhesive, irritation. and then start with 30 to 60 minutes during the day while reading or walking to build comfort.
Okay.
Because a lot of people that start a new sleep routine don't necessarily get used to it right away. Like for me, when I had my splint in, my night guard,
Yes.
tougher for me to sleep right away because I wasn't quite used to it. So
Mm.
this is a great way to at least get you ready to sleep so it doesn't affect your sleep long
Interesting.
term.
So I know I hear this a lot from patients. I brought this up to a couple in the last maybe year or so. A lot of times when you were working here, I just refer them to you. But how do you have that conversation? Because when you hear someone, I'm just thinking if I'm a general person, I haven't heard of any of this before, and a doctor's telling me, or someone's telling me to put tape over my mouth when I'm sleeping. Initially, my mind would be like, are we trying to suffocate
Oh,
ourselves? Are
for
we
sure.
trying to die? Like, how would you have that
100%.
conversation?
100%. I would make sure that the patient is ready to speak about that. So I have their permission to talk about it. They've either brought that up to me,
Okay.
or I've at least had permission to give them a recommendation. So there are
Love
times
that.
where I like to say, I hear you've been still struggling with this. One of my patients was an asthmatic. So it was more for nasal breathing or nasal strips than anything.
Okay.
And then cold plunge and other things. And I said, can I give you a recommendation on what I think might help that? And they usually will say yes. So I just want to make sure that I have the recommendation. Once I have their permission, I can tell them anything because then they at least requested it. But if I
Mostly.
said, hey,
Yeah.
you should go tape your mouth, you're a terrible breather, we're like, what are you talking about? I don't, leave me alone. You just need permission. But I think too, there are plenty of places that this could apply to. And right away, mentioning it probably isn't the best. It's probably going to be something that I'll build in a little bit later on too. Once I've started treating them, they're improving, they're trust us. It's all about rapport too. But even with like friends and family, it's the same way. Unless they've given you permission to tell, given you advice, they probably won't take it.
Makes sense.
You just you need to figure out a way to get that permission because then what you tell them more than likely will stick and they'll actually listen to you. So
Just send them this episode, this podcast, and
for sure.
there you go.
I'm telling you, I'm excited to see more information on sleep apnea, mouth breathing with mouth tape, nasal strips, and or Galpin's stuff with what he's doing. Super exciting.
And I'm even thinking about putting a lot of this like into application of all the stuff that we touched on today. Let's say you're trying to train someone in their sport. Let's go to the top tier athletes, okay? Maybe let's utilize, if they haven't used this before, like you said, 30 to 60 minutes during the day to build that comfort level.
Yep.
Let's put the mouth strip over the mouth, or the nose strip over the nose, excuse me, the mouth tape, and then go through different breathing mechanics, go through certain repetitions of your sport or event, go through just easy movements, start noticing your diaphragm and have that tension in your awareness on different aspects of breathing. Are you able to get in these common movements of your sport, athletics? And if you're able to get in those areas, if you're breathing, if you feel like you're winded through your breath, through your like mental cognition, through your mindset, maybe you want to build up that tolerance, because when you're in a stressful situation, thus that type of movement,
Yep.
you're able to think more clearly. Let's say, okay, NHL, we're in the playoffs right now. We're coming and trying to, you're at the end of the game, you're pushing through, you're already fatigued the way it is. Let's say 3-on-3 power play, it doesn't matter too much on that side. You want to be able to think clearly in that stressful situation, even when you're gassed.
Yes.
So are you able to complete these type of moves, the sequence of movements, and actually think about different scenarios at the same time? So much the same with any other sport. Let's combine all these two together. Even if it's on a rest recovery day, your system is overwhelmed, go through these breathing techniques and then go through small, easy, light movements as you're going through it. So then it gets the mental cognition, the tactical, strategic side, as the same time as you're working on different parts of your body that you may not realize.
For sure. And
Interesting.
I think there is still a lot that we can learn using this on performance athletes.
Yes.
I still think we're just learning a little bit more about it, and this is going to
Early
be
on.
a little bit newer. But from some of my best lifts came with me making sure I had my nasal strips on.
That's
I'm
awesome.
telling you, man, it's huge for me.
Let's go.
I've started to wear it more to the gym when I'm working out.
Yes.
Now, the nasal strip I have is not a strip anymore. It's a magnetic device.
How's that
called
work?
intake breathing. So I have these little small patches that have a magnet in them,
Oh, okay.
and then I put them on each side of my nose.
Okay.
And then the strip is a very hard, rigid, flexible to an extent, but rigid little kind of half circle looking thing.
Yeah.
And so I pinch it, and then once it connects to both, I let it go, and it flexes out, and it
Opens up
helps me open up
the
my nasal. Yep. And
Yeah.
I liked it because the nasal strips go all the way over the skin, and they have a lot of adhesive on them, and so it's can create a lot of rawness with my nose.
Gotcha.
I love. It's called intake breathing. Been using it now for over a year. I love it. It's great, and I really think a lot of people who have needed nasal strips will like it a little more, just because I know a lot of people get the same issues where they just have so much adhesive. They're using it every night, and it can be a lot too.
Makes sense. And we're not sponsored by any of these
Not yet.
places on that side.
Not
Just
yet. But intake,
throwing that out
any
there.
intake social media people, call
Hey-o.
us up, because I'll tell you what, I will go night and day to push your product because I love it so much. But
Let's
so
go.
lastly, nasal strips. They are adhesive bands, or now there's other things that you can use to press across the nasal bridge to mechanically open the nasal valves. This reduces airway resistance, improves airflow through the nasal passage. It can improve athletic breathing mechanics. It can reduce snoring. It aids in performance. There are a few studies that I have here. This one in '98 showed nasal strips reduce inspiratory resistance and improved exercise tolerance in athletes with nasal congestion.
Wow.
2003 showed significant improvement in nasal airflow and sleep quality. 96, in mild obstructive sleep apnea, nasal strips improved oxygen saturation, decreased snoring intensity. You mix that with mouth tape. I'm telling you,
Yes.
are CPAP machines even needed? Who knows? I'm not saying that to be
Yes.
silly. I'm serious. Would that change things? Could that truly take away a CPAP machine? I don't know.
Theoretically, it would make sense for most. I'm not saying
Maybe not right
would.
away, but like,
Yes.
how could we get you off of it? I don't know.
100%.
Lastly, 2020 demonstrated improved perception of ease of breathing and lowered RPE, or rate of perceived exertion, during aerobic exercise. This is what I feel, man. I'm telling you, when I got my nose strips on, my length always usually increases by 25 to 50% of how long I can do things, and my reps, I go from 10 to 20 or 25 sometimes. I just love it. It is great for me.
Just even hearing all this stuff, I am definitely going to go order some stuff
Yes.
online. I'm so excited
And they
to
have a
get some
good intro
strips.
offer. You
And
get 2 or 3 months supply with
Ooh.
all the, 'cause there's different people have different size noses. So
Sure.
they give you like 4 or 5 different applicators, and then you get like a 2 or 3 month supply.
Ooh.
Telling you, it's one of the more successful technological changes in nose strips for sure. The next one I'm looking into
go.
though is the stint.
Um,
It's got a hosing mechanism. You put it all the way back down into your sinus, and then you pull it out, and then you spin it, and it's
yeah.
like a DNA, and it expands your nasal passage, and you
Untwist.
just leave it in for 18 hours. You can leave it in for 18 hours.
And is this for people with more deviated
For
symptoms?
sure.
I'm assuming.
Athletes too that want to just improve. If they go and they're going to have a 2 hour game, and they are worried about sweating and all the strips falling off, or what have you. The stint, they can just leave in there for 18 hours.
Wow. They have to go take those out then,
Yep.
I'm assuming.
So after 18 hours, you just take out the stent, wash it, and then it's reusable.
That's
But
gnarly.
it's like $1,000.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And it's okay, yeah, wow. And that's for a small device that you can put in yourself. You don't have to have
Nope.
someone put in.
Nope.
Okay.
So you just have to know how to put it in.
Wow.
Yeah. So it puts down all the way down your nasal passage. It's protected by a covering. You pull the covering off, and then now you're left with the device, and then it untwines as you move it.
That's not. I had
It
no
just
idea.
widens it. I want to try it. I think it sounds cool.
It's spendy, but
Yeah, I
that'd
don't
be
know
worth it.
I don't know if I want to spend money on it right now, but for right now. But yeah, eventually that does sound. If you are an athlete who struggles with breathing and wants to try that, I don't know if they're legal, but
I don't see why not.
as a UFC
Right.
fighter, it doesn't sound great because you're getting
Yeah.
punched. But maybe
Yeah, that'd be a little scary.
other sports, golf
Yes.
or tennis, maybe, I don't know.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
It opens up the ball game a little bit.
That's all I got on nasal strips and mouth tape.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we learned a lot today, like more application use. Obviously, we brought some of the research to back up some of the claims, but
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I hope you guys take what we said seriously. I do think that this is something that everyone can start implementing in their day-to-day life, and I think it's going to make a lot more change than you think. We tried to give you as much research as possible to show you that this is not just anecdotal, just us trying it. Like, there is a lot of impact on humans regarding breath work and improving your breath, vagal tone, heart rate variability, all these things. So please give it a try. Let us know how it goes in the comments. If you think this is valuable, share it with everyone else you think could use this. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Please comment, subscribe. And until next time, guys,
Let's go.
we'll see you again.
Disclaimer: the content provided in this health podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is solely at your own risk. The creators and hosts of this podcast are not responsible for any actions or decisions you may take based on the information presented.
Thanks for joining us on The Functional Code. For more evidence-based health insights, subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, your journey to a healthier you begins with understanding the functional code. Until next time, stay well, stay informed, and embrace the science of living well.